Welcome to the Mindset, Marketing and Money podcast, hosted by me, Dean Seddon. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Welcome back to the podcast. It's Dean here, and just before we get into today's episode, I want to thank Andrea for messaging in and just letting me know that she implemented that whole LinkedIn piece and it's already paying off. She's got some meetings booked in her diary already, which is awesome. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, on my website, deanseddon.io, there is an article about how to get clients on LinkedIn this month. I did a little bit of an audio event about this on LinkedIn. She did it. It's already paying off. She's got some meetings booked. So well done, Andrea. Awesome result. And if you haven't done it yet, go and do it. Now, today, what we're going to be talking about is the 8 reasons why people fail at selling themselves online. And I see these all the time. I've been victim to these as well. And they really screw you over. When I started out my business and I was a solopreneur, I had all of these issues at once. And it took me about 10 years to realize what all these were. And it was 10 painful years of things not really working that well, just getting by. So I want to kind of talk about them, explain my perspective on them and why they're so important. So we're going to start with your value prop. Number 1, your value prop. Can you articulate what the point of your service really is? What does it do for somebody? And can you do it in a very simple and easy to understand way? Ultimately, what is the problem you're actually solving? Now, in the offline world, in real life, shall we say, you might have a bigger opportunity to communicate your value proposition because you might meet somebody in person. And in person, you'll probably get more time to explain what you do. But in an online space where attention spans are so short, you don't have that luxury. So we've got to be able to show our value proposition very, very quickly and very concisely. And so what we've seen is a trend, and it's an effective trend, is given that attention spans are short, that people's value proposition becomes more narrow. In other words, you'll see people who can help you with Instagram content, say, and what they do is they say, I'll make your reels go viral. It's a clear value proposition that people can see whether, for the right people, it matches. And so in days gone by and in the real world, we probably have a more nuanced, more detailed, more sophisticated value proposition. In an internet space with bad attention spans, you probably need to make it you do need to make it more concise, more simple. Since I've been doing I'll help you win clients on LinkedIn, build your business with freedom, authority and impact, if people want that, they inquire. Now, the nuance, the detail, all of that stuff is on the back end, but we're going to market with an election slogan, which clearly communicates our value. So that's a biggie that people don't get. And you can't really sell anything. It's hard work selling if you're not, or marketing what you do if that bit isn't clear. So you really want to make that as clear as possible and as simple and as straightforward as possible. Then there is the infamous one, which I feel like I've been a stuck record about here, which is the wrong audience. So this comes down in 2 ways. So you're not targeting people with the money to pay for it. So in any market, there's people who want to do it themselves, maybe can't afford somebody's help. There's people who want to learn and try and do it themselves. And then maybe they'll struggle, maybe they need a bit more help. And then there's the people who don't want to do it themselves. So there's DIYers, triers, and buyers, as I call them. DIYers who just want to buy information to do it themselves. Triers may buy a course, may buy your assistance, but fundamentally, they want to do it themselves. Then you've got the people who are just buyers. They want your expertise. They want you to do it. They don't want to get involved with it. They just want to pay you to solve the problem. So there's 3 general types of audiences there. And whatever we're selling, we have to target the right one. If we've got a done-for-you service, we do things for our clients. and then we start targeting people who want to do it themselves, we might have the right audience, we might be speaking to the right problem, but we're speaking to people who won't convert. They are fundamentally DIYers. Triers can kind of go either way. They can do it themselves and get stuck and shift. But hopefully that's made some sense here, that it's not just about, oh, this is my target audience. Within your target audience, there's going to be people who have no intentions of, buying your coaching program. They just want information to figure it out themselves. So that gives you an opportunity to go, well, hang on a minute, I've got information products, I've got training, and I've got actual coaching work where I work with people. So it gives you an opportunity to actually have 3 different ways to deliver your services. The other part of the wrong audience as well is, let's say I'm a business owner, right? You're a business owner, probably listening. You might be a marketing manager, whoever you are. We'll approach LinkedIn. We may want the same goals. We may want the same things. But I'm in social media and marketing. You might be in coaching. Somebody else might be in tech sector. We all want the same thing, say. 3 of us, all different types of people, but we're all approaching LinkedIn for the same goal. So you would think that, well, hang on a minute, I can serve all 3 of you. And Dean can. But actually, to communicate the value of what I do, it's very difficult for me to talk to the cybersecurity person, the coach, and the social media marketing person with the same message. And so having that disconnect of the audience, or having that disconnect where you're trying to sell to too big an audience, weakens your marketing message, weakens your value proposition, because you can't clearly communicate the value. It gets lost. You can't use analogies that resonate with me. You can't use examples that relate to me, because you're trying to also relate to the cybersecurity person, and you're trying to also relate to the coach. And so what happens is, in an attempt to, it happens all the way through your profile. In an attempt to try and speak to those 3 different people, it's not what you say, it's what you don't say. So you end up saying quite generic statements. You end up saying things that kind of don't really hit a nerve for anybody. So having too broad an audience can create an impact where actually it undermines, compromises your value proposition, and you're seen as generalized rather than relevant and specific and useful to any particular person. Then we've got the weak positioning. And this is a tricky one, because the weak positioning is about how are you establishing your corner of the internet. So like the category of 1 that I talk about, how do you differentiate yourself but also stand out, don't become forgettable, and that you're seen as the go-to expert. You've got to decide and put that together about how you're going to do that. Because yes, you want to relate to people and you want to build relationships, but you want to build those relationships where they see you in a particular way. And this is where kind of personal branding comes in, all of that stuff comes in, because it does help shape how you're perceived. And most people don't think about this. How do I want to be perceived? Where do I want to sit in the market? And how do I make sure I'm not just talking and making a lot of noise like everybody else? How do I create signal? One of the reasons I created my email newsletter and called it Signal is because very often people are so afraid to stand out. They know they need to stand out. They know how important it is to stand out. But when it comes to the crunch, when the rubber hits the road, overcoming that fear, overcoming that sheer terror, forces them to kind of backtrack, and they dilute and they compromise, and they end up doing stuff and being disappointed with it, frustrated with it, because they were so afraid of randoms. And I think as you get older, you start to, I know in my experience, I've been writing about this in my personal blog that I put on my website, you start to care less and less about that. But when you're a bit younger, you care about it. And the other thing is, if you're not making much money at the moment, and maybe you're finding it quite tough, the challenge of going, I'm going to be bold, I'm going to stand up, and I'm going to, effectively talk to a group of people and risk repelling some people actually sounds terrifying because you can't afford to repel anybody. But actually it works to draw people to you as well. So this positioning thing is not just about, it's just, branding and color schemes. It's about what you say it, how you put all that together so that you draw the right people and repel the wrong people. So most people don't get this. You can get more success from less impressions, lower engagement, without having big following if you position yourself well. You could be making 150, 200K a year from LinkedIn with 500 connections if you really nail your positioning and your target audience. Okay, number four, disorganized sales process. Do you have a process that takes somebody from they don't know you to they become a lead, to they make an inquiry, to you move them through? You need a process. Everybody needs a process to take people from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel. And what most people do is it's always extremes, right? They're either doing shit tons of stuff to get top of funnel, high engagement, loads of posts, everybody loves that stuff. That's the first one, but none of it's coming down. So they're not converting anything. So they're getting lots of attention at the top, lots of engagement at the top, but it's not converting. Then there's the other side of this where actually they're doing so much promotion that they're not building any form of sales process or funnel. So buying is a journey and selling is a process. And you've got to take people from LinkedIn, and I always recommend building an email list. I think a solid strategy for a small business, a solopreneur, is build an email list. It makes you algorithm proof, but it does allow you to build that process a bit more streamlined, because you're posting and you have no idea who's going to see your posts. It's great top of funnel stuff, but you actually need to get people down the funnel, and an email list is a great part to do that. But if you don't have that organization, that plan, and you're not working it day in, day out, you're basically leaving everything on luck, and you're putting everything down to, luck, but also you may be forcing your prospects to work harder to do business with you than your competitors. They might find it easier to work with other people because your process is poorly defined. Maybe they've come close to being a potential lead or client for you, but that process has just been a bit of a mess or doesn't exist, and it's cost you. It could be costing you right now. It could be costing people right now. They could have loads of opportunity, but because they just don't have it lined up, they're losing it. Okay. Number 5, mindset problem. Oh, this is a biggie. Right? Oh, if I could wave a magic wand, I would fix this one, because this is probably one of the biggest things people struggle with. It's not doing the work, it's their heads. Their personal hang-ups, their emotions, how they see the world. That is the biggest hold-up for most people. If you can't believe in yourself, nobody else is. We can pick up on when somebody believes in themselves. And if you're not believing in yourself, if you don't believe in what you're selling, if you don't believe in your offer, if you're confident enough to stand behind it, that will come through in everything you say. Now, the more experience you have in your subject matter area, the more experience you have in your field, the problem is that the really experienced people tend to get more and more cautious about what they say the more experience they have. So if you've been doing it for 5-6 months, you might be a little naive, in your field, you might be a bit more naive to the realities of what that means working in that field. And so you will have a bit more of a simplistic view. In fact, you'll probably be more confident, more bold, more bolshy. And you see this all over the internet. 20-somethings making very bold statements. 20-somethings telling you that this is the way and other ways are dead. That comes from inexperience. That foolishness almost comes from inexperience. It's easy to think when you're in your 20s that my way is the only way. And when you're young, you start to think that this way is dead and this way, it's naive. It's naivety. And there's a lot of it going around. And as you get more experienced, as you build up your expertise, what you will find is that you suddenly realize there is more than one way. It's not as straightforward as it sounds. You will have those scenarios where actually, you can help people, you can solve a particular problem, but you feel nervous about putting big, bold promises out there because reality, common sense, you can't fix every problem. You know that you can't have 100% success rate. And so all of this stuff, as you get more experience, starts to fuck you up, basically. Because you've got some 20-something going, I'll make you $100,000 in 90 days. And I've had this, right? You got people going, I'll make you $100,000 in 90 days, right? And this bold promise, very exciting promise, very tempting promise. But I know from experience that there's some people, even some people I've had to stop working with because we make a plan and then we agree on the plan, we agree on the actions, and then 2 or 3 days later, they've seen something else and they want to change everything again, or they bottle it when it comes to taking action. I've seen this all, time and time again, and you have. And so we get really nervous about saying things like, I can do this, this, and this for you, because we can't do that for everybody. And the logical thing to go is, well, I don't want to say that, ethical, you don't want to say that promise and then can't deliver on it. You don't want to be called out for giving false promises. This is all in our heads, by the way, we do this. And the answer to that is not to not make the promise. It's to qualify when you go and do your sales calls, is actually qualify people better and be a bit more picky about who you work with. Make the big, bold promise, but then have the process in place to actually make sure that you don't onboard people who will dilly-dally, overthink it, or bottle taking action. That's the way to do it. But our mindset gets in the way, it screws us over, fucks us up. We doubt ourselves, we second guess ourselves, we see somebody else thriving and it makes us feel like shit. All of that stuff goes on. Meanwhile, that affects our emotions, it affects how we feel about stuff, and we end up in a situation where we should be taking action and instead we're debating it and tearing ourselves up inside, trying to decide if it's the right thing. I've been there, I've done it to myself, but at some point you have to go, enough's enough. Let's just do this thing. And the most annoying thing about being a human being is that the confidence of doing something always comes after you've done it. So you're not going to feel like you might feel excited, but you're not going to feel confident. There's going to be doubt. There's going to be fear. That's a natural process. The only time, think about it. If you've been training to be a race driver and you've been training to be a race driver in simulators, right? You've done all of that. And then you come to a point and it's like, now you've got to sit in that car for the first time and actually drive the car. You will worry whether you're ready. You will worry about whether this is the right decision. You'll worry about all of that stuff. You'll be imagining all sorts of scenarios. It's bound to happen. The confidence of driving a race car comes after you've driven the race car. The confidence of going to market comes after you've gone to market. There's no way to feel 100% or even 80% confident before you've done something. But we're waiting for signs. We're waiting for, the stars to align, for everything to come together. And we feel that's, it should feel great and it should feel perfect and it should feel all together. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It really doesn't. I don't know what that was. That was number 5. Okay. Number 6. You're not doing enough marketing, right? Now, if you're starting out, you've got to throw a lot of energy behind it to build something. And then like we said, you've got to build a process and a system, but you've got to do a lot of work. I often say this to people and they don't get it. And, sometimes, I get frustrated and want to kind of not hit people, but you know what I mean? For somebody to see what you do, let's say they stumble across you today on LinkedIn, for them to go from I've seen that person to I remember that person is probably 7 different touch points, 7 different times they would need to see you to just remember who you are. If you were promoting what you do, somebody would need to see that promotion at least 7 times for them to go, maybe I should look at this more. Most people are just not marketing enough. They're not sticking to their message and being consistent in driving home the message enough. So it's not one post a week that's going to do it. You've got to think about this as consistent, every day, do a little bit, every day, do a little bit. If you're not thinking that way, and if you're not working that way, you're basically relying on magic. Marketing requires effort, and it requires consistent effort. So you've got to be visible. You've got to have your offer promoted. Don't know how many times I talk to people and say, I do, in my workshops, I do what are called a profile roast. And the majority of the time, I'll get somebody in the room's profile up, and I'll ask the audience to look through the profile and describe what that person does. What's their company? What do they do? What's the problem they solve? And most of the time, it's not clear. It really isn't clear. So I would 100% go, right, what is my marketing plan? What's my daily activities? And have them logged in your diary. And they're not optional. They're not the things that you do around everything else. They are core activities that are critical to your success. Number 7. Okay, so number 7 is, it's kind of linked to something we said earlier. It's inconsistent messaging. So jumping around, changing what you say, changing who you're talking to, all of that stuff messes you up. You need to bang a drum for one thing. Imagine you're running for election. Yeah, I'm recording this in October 2024. We're a few weeks away from the American election. You need to have one clear message if you want people to vote for you. If you want to get elected to presidential office, you've got to have one clear reason people should vote for you. At the end of the day, we might have lots of reasons, but ultimately it comes down to people will vote for one reason. And consistent messaging, your campaign slogan, your key message is so important that people get it and understand it. So banging a drum, being consistent, being repetitive, it might feel boring. It might feel like you're annoying people, but it's absolutely critical to people to get it. For people to get your message, they absolutely have to see that consistent message coming out from you. Think about it like a radio jingle, right? We don't remember a radio jingle just because we heard it once. We have to hear it multiple times, and then it gets stuck in our heads, and that's exactly what we're trying to achieve. But imagine if you change the jingle every time you play it. It's a different jingle. Imagine if you do that. Nobody will remember anything of what you've done. It won't catch in people's heads. They won't retain the information. I've got commercials in my head, stuck in my head from years ago that I've still not forgotten, even though the companies are no longer around. So that consistent message, banging the drum consistently like an election campaign, is absolutely critical. Okay, final one. Number 8, pricing. So pricing has to be defined to the problem. So you can see, like, pricing has to match. As human beings, we're very emotive beings, but if your price is wrong, it will mess up your offer. If it's too cheap, we'll think we won't trust it. If it's too expensive, we might be out of our reach. So we've got to find the price that fits the problem for our audience. If we go one way or another here, we can mess it up. So yes, we should absolutely looking at our competitors' pricing to see where the market is. Yes, we should be targeting people who can actually afford that price, because within our target audience, there's people who can't afford that price and there's people who can. So we've got to put all that piece together. But I can tell you now, lower prices does not mean you're going to sell more. Discounts do not necessarily mean you are going to sell more. In fact, if your price seems too cheap, people will think there's something wrong with it. It won't be very good. So you've got two parts to this. You've got affordability. What can my audience actually afford? Or which part of my target audience can afford what? But you've also got the psychology of pricing of if it's too cheap, people won't trust it. They won't think it's very good. And if it's too expensive, it might be out of their reach. But just to factor it, there's people buying Lamborghinis and there's people buying Fiats, right? So in that same camp there, you've got people who buy a car to get around, Fiat, and you've got people who buy a Lamborghini for a very different reason. So within your market, you've got to find which audience am I going for, and are they expecting Lamborghini pricing or Fiat pricing? That changes the way you sell and who you sell to within your own target audience. So if you're talking to a CEO of a global company, with 10,000 employees, and you say, actually, my coaching is £110 an hour, they might think it's not very good because of the size of the transformation, the shift that they want to make in their world is so significant for them that price doesn't align. And likewise, if you talk to a solopreneur who's just getting started and you said, well, your rate was £110, their mentality might be, that's a lot of money. So it's not just about pricing to the market, it's about pricing to your subset of the market, because they will see that price very differently. There are some people who won't buy bottled water. There are some people who will buy bottled water. And then there's some people who will pay over the odds for extra special bottled water. Think about this. Where do you sit in that section? Or are you just trying to appeal to all of it? That price issue could be a problem. And I'll just wrap up with one other thing on price, because I was going to try and keep this in as short a podcast episode as possible, is you've got to get really comfortable with your own value. It's a mindset thing, really. But I know from my perspective, one of the things I used to do, I saw my price and thought it was a lot of money. And it was a lot of money, but to my client base, it wasn't. But because mentally I saw it as a lot of money, I undermined my own value because I would offer discounts. I would offer discounts on my price before the customer had even asked, and compromise my price. I also wasn't confident in my price, so I felt awkward and difficult and uncomfortable talking about it. And for a long time, that held me back because I was so fixated on how much that money meant to me, not how much the difference the service would make to the client. And that mental shift of thinking about how much difference this can make for the client actually, one, put my mentality more focused on customer success, but two, helped eliminate that unease I had about my pricing. So there we are. There are the 8 reasons people fail to sell their services online. If you recognize any of these, there's work to be done. There's things to fix.
Thanks for joining me on this episode of Mindset, Marketing and Money Podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe so you get notified about future episodes.